Broadcasting from the Cass Corridor in Detroit, this is The Metro, a slice of news, culture, and conversation. I'm Robin Vincent.
And I'm Carrie Jr., the second in for Tia Graham. Today on the program, AI is everywhere, including education.
Is it an equalizer or an ethical dilemma with cascading effects? We'll ask an educator, a student, and more.
Plus, Detroit sports are having a moment, and that means local arenas are hosting lots of people. But many of the folks working these packed arenas are living paycheck to paycheck.
And Black men in corporate America have long had to conform to a system that discriminates against them. A new book says it doesn't have to be this way. But first, Carrie, when you think about cities, what comes to mind?
I don't know, skyscrapers, tall buildings, dense apartments, loud noises, maybe some fancy restaurants and clubs, depending on what your nightlife vibe is.
Okay, that's fair. You probably then don't think about acres of land and lots of farms. But in addition to those apartments and the clubs and the fancy restaurants, Detroit is full of farms and farmers. A number of residents grow their own crops and food, and they take care of animals. And that last action, taking care of animals, just got a little easier in the city with a new animal husbandry ordinance.
That's right, Robin. It means residents can now keep up to 8 chickens or ducks and 4 honeybee hives for personal use. And it has us wondering, how might the city be changed by this ordinance? To discuss this and more, we have Patrice Brown here. She's the Associate Director of Urban Agriculture for the City of Detroit. Director Brown, welcome back to the Metro.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's good to be here this morning.
Well, good to have you. Good to have you. So first off, what do you think will be the biggest impact of the animal husbandry ordinance?
Food security. That is the first thing that comes to my mind. This was one of the points that was made by the community, especially some of our community partners in the food system space, like the Detroit Food Policy Council. We made the point of really pushing for that food security piece in the community, and I think that's where we're at with it. When we have chickens and ducks, we can produce eggs. And as you know, in the food system right now, we're facing a lot of challenges with eggs. And so it is really a good thing that our residents are now able to potentially produce their own eggs and a source of food and to help feed their community. So we're really excited about that piece.
Now the law does not allow for the ownership of roosters, pigs, horses, cows, or other animals not named in the law. Why did city leaders decide these animals couldn't be raised on private residential land?
There were discussions previously about adding these particular animals, but because Detroit, the city of Detroit, is not it's more dense, I would say, than it was in the past. We just decided that we would fight for those other pieces in the ordinance that was palatable, I think, in community. And so that is why we kind of kept those additional animals out of the ordinance. Now, the beautiful thing about the ordinance is you're an educational institution or a nonprofit organization, you can request a special land use hearing. And if there are educational things you want to do and add those animals, there is a potential for that. We're not promising that from the city department end, but there will be a process where folks could, if there are nonprofit and they're doing it with programs like 4-H educational programs, then they'll be able to potentially add animals that aren't listed.
Okay, so there still could be a chance that I could get myself a cow if I wanted to. All right.
Well, not rooster, but maybe if it's for 4-H purposes, and those type of programs are very educational.
Right, for educational purposes, right. Understood. For people who are still concerned about this ordinance, they think that chickens and ducks will be a nuisance and that their neighbors' bees might sting them. What do you say to those folks?
Well, we want neighbors to be our friends in this space, for residents to talk to one another, and that's one of the requirements when folks go and visit the Animal Care and Control website. They'll be able to do that shortly to apply for the license. You have to fill out a form first. And part of the ordinance language, we were intentional about the residents really talking to one another and saying to their neighbor that, I want to keep animals. And so it's not a requirement that you get your neighbor signed off, but it is it's a kindness, a courtesy to your neighbor to say, I do want these animals. And I want to shout out to James Tate office and his team, Jai. They really were integral, and CPC, Kamani Jeffries, they were very integral in making sure that we talked to those residents that weren't really comfortable in this space. And we really brought their minds at ease. We're really looking to the community to formulate the guild, the animal guild. Those were things that we committed to make sure that neighbors talk to neighbors. Everybody is aware of what's going on when they do have someone keeping chickens and ducks and bees in their yard. And then we put things in place to make sure that, all of those, like anybody worried about a bee sting, we put barriers within the ordinance rules where people have to comply with those different types of rules within the ordinance in order to get the license approved for their chickens and bees. And for the chickens and ducks.
I do have
bees,
a question real quick, Patrice. I'm curious to know, is there a potential, like if someone were to violate the rules that you all have, what's the repercussions for that? Is there some enforcement applied to that as well?
So animal care and control will go out. They'll survey. They will also give warnings to our animal keepers in the city. And so we have that piece added to what we committed to from the city's perspective. And so we are looking to the animal care and control officers. They were able to hire, I think, 2 additional officers. And what we want to start off with is good animal keeping practices. And we want to really push that piece and have as many educational opportunities for folks and to connect with our community partners who can help them keep the bees, train them on how to keep the bees and the chickens and ducks in some cases. And so we really are not trying to take anyone's right to have the animals away. That's not our first purpose. Our first purpose is to help them keep it, and then we do have mechanisms in place that are in place for people who are not following the rules.
Understood. Okay. I want to turn now to the bird flu because it's been on the minds of a lot of people. What do you suggest to people raising chickens right now during a bird flu outbreak? What kinds of things should they be cautious about?
They should be cautious about coming into direct contact with their birds. There are a lot of rules that our Detroit Health Department can help with. And also we have the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, MDART, that puts out different safety requirements. But the first thing is to try to at least limit your contact with the chickens, direct contact. So, if you're feeding your chickens, I would suggest that you're feeding them at a distance. And if you have to let them out the coop for a while, they should be able to roam in the extended cage area. But that is the biggest thing, I think, direct contact. So making sure you're not being scratched by the chickens or in direct contact with the chickens. So that will be my biggest thing, and making sure that you really practice your basic hygiene, washing your hands after your feedings, and making sure that you're removing maybe your boots when you're coming into your house, and just basic precautions like that is what I would first say. But please, to all of our residents that may be listening who want to keep chickens and ducks, we're asking that you please do your homework, tap into the MDART resources and our Detroit Health Department resources.
Yeah,
they have a lot of different rules around what you should be doing when you're taking care of these animals.
That is very helpful information for our listeners. Thank you so much, Patrice. You're listening to The Metro on WDET, Detroit Public Radio. I'm Kerry Jr. II, in for Tia Graham.
And I'm Robin Vincent. We're speaking with Patrice Brown, Associate Director of Urban Agriculture for Detroit. We're talking about the new animal husbandry ordinance that recently went into effect. And Director Brown, President Trump had a short freeze on federal funding before a federal judge blocked the freeze. And although he hasn't yet, Trump is trying to get around that freeze right now. And it's unclear if the funds have even been unfrozen everywhere. So this has me wondering, as someone who works in government who could be impacted by that freeze, meaning you, what have all these... What has this signal to you thus far? Are you concerned?
Well, we want to continue to build bridges with President Trump and his team. My work directly in the city of Detroit is not being impacted. We have funding for the programs that we're talking about in the urban ag space this year. We have the compost pilot coming out, and thanks to Carhartt being our sponsor of that program, we feel very confident that we'll be able to continue to do that work. And then we just want to continue to help build bridges with President Trump and his team, because we know that food and feeding our community is very important. And hopefully those USDA-funded programs and food-funded programs will remain protected.
Director Brown, my final question for you. There are other changes happening in politics, certainly at the local level. I'm thinking about Mayor Duggan, who's decided not to run for re-election. I wonder how his decision might impact you in your role as Director of Urban Agriculture. What's your message to the next mayor of Detroit?
Oh,
going deep for the end.
Question. Yeah, I'm a resident of Detroit, so like Mayor Duggan said in his farewell presentation, I want to see those candidates. I'm a resident, so I want to be able to see the platform of candidates out there. And just really what I would urge the candidates to do is to not forget about the urban ag community. It's been a staple in our community for over 20 years now. That's how we got the animal keeping ordinance or the animal husbandry ordinance passed, because of the work of the urban farm community. And so I would, urge the next administration to really hone in on our urban ag community and pay attention to what's happening, because Detroit is one of the top urban ag spaces in the country, and we are changing what's happening in our community. So it's very important that we are able to continue the work that we've been doing and feeding our communities in the city of Detroit. And I think we all know how important that is. Food security is at top of mind. So we want to make sure that those things are top of mind at our administration levels as well. And Mayor Duggan has done a really phenomenal job in bringing myself and Director Farrah Rushton on, and we are really focused on that green space and really helping to make our neighborhoods
Patrice,
more beautiful.
we have run out of time. I want to thank you so much for joining us on the Metro. Patrice Brown is the Associate Director of Urban Agriculture for Detroit. We so appreciate your time.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I appreciate y'all.
from the WDET newsroom. Detroit city leaders say 2 kids who likely froze to death in a van outside the Hollywood casino had been living in the vehicle with their family for a few months, moving whenever possible. Mayor Mike Duggan says their mother contacted the city in November seeking housing help, but neither she nor the city followed up. Duggan said shelter beds were available nearby, but added that the city needs to do a better job of publicizing the locations of the 1,400 beds across the city.
Warming centers can be found around the city of Detroit. Individuals who are at risk of being unhoused or are currently unhoused should call the Detroit Housing Resource Helpline at 866-313-2520. There are a number of warming centers around Southeast Michigan. For more info on them, go to allianceformichiganpower.com/warming centers-Michigan. Those warming centers will likely be needed because there's a winter storm that's expected to drop 4 to 7 inches in southeast Michigan beginning this afternoon. And next week, low temperatures in the single digits are in the forecast. Detroit's Public Works Department says it's ready to salt and plow more than 600 miles of roads throughout the city. In addition to the snow, there could be a thin layer of ice late tonight and early tomorrow morning.
Coming up at 11, artificial intelligence is everywhere. It is now ubiquitous in schools and education. Is that good for students? Will they be able to learn to write and therefore think and communicate on their own? What role do you think AI should have in education? Call in. The number is 313-577-1019.
Up next, corporate America has long been a white-dominated space. A new book aims to help Black men thrive in that world. We'll hear from the author. This is the Metro on WDET. Stay with us.